edition of Wins Life. Good morning. Like and subscribe and share my videos. I'm just going to talk about Gary Neville, the footballer. And I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to give Gary Neville his props here because I watch Sky Sports football a lot. You know, I'm a football fan. I love football. And Gary Neville is quite an outspoken guy when it comes to football. He actually knows what he's doing. One of the leading pundits in the country. Yeah, I'm not a Man United fan. I'm a Manchester City fan. Yeah, and then Gary Neville was one of my favourite players. Actually, didn't like him as a footballer because he used to actually moan a lot on the pitch, and he wasn't one of my favourite footballers at all, Gary Neville. And along with Man United being a football club as well, but he became a pundit. He became a manager of Sevilla, and obviously Valencia, and he failed that managerial. It's one role he had. It was a total failure. But he's come back into football punditry and to become one of the leading pundits, one of the most outspoken pundits in the British system. Probably might be in the world, in the top 10 anyway. Gary Neville. His judgment of football is quite good. I've got to give him that. Now, the other day, Gary Neville called out the British public on his social media whilst he was walking, and Gary Neville was talking about the British flag, which as a child growing up, I never saw the British flag as anything but beside the Queen and the royal family, and also football games and tennis and blah blah blah. When an English sports person, Daley Thompson, Mo Farah, all these people actually won stuff. Alan Wells for Scotland and stuff like that was a kid growing up. And the British flag, also Sir Chris Boardman and all the cyclists, the great cyclists of the UK, and the Queen's Jubilee, the first Queen Jubilee when I was a little boy. I remember the flag all over the place. This is the Queen. This is the main flag. And then you got the St George's flag, which is St George. And you all know St George wasn't English. He was Palestinian. He was a Muslim. And these are the same people who are being called out. But Gary Neville said something the other day on his social media, which I totally have to agree with. In the 19 years of where he said he was staying, he's never seen a flag of St George outside there, a British flag, because someone been going around putting up flags all over the place. And yes, it's the UK country, so it is their flag. But Gary Neville said one thing. He says the flag is being used as propaganda. He said, I've never seen a flag outside my place in all the years, so I took the flag down. So then you got this social media uproar of all these people who are now jumping on Gary Neville, and then you got the people who are supporting him. So you got the leftists supporting Gary Neville, and then you got the far right who don't like it, because Gary Neville's saying it's like these middle-aged, blah, blah, blah guys who are doing so and so and so. And I totally have to agree with Gary Neville, because when you see what's going on right now in the UK, and a lot of people you see on these marches, on these videos and such and stuff, Gary Neville has just basically called them out for what they are and for what they're doing. And he has every single right as a human being to actually say what he wants. It's freedom of speech. And Gary Neville used social media as a platform again to create his freedom of speech. So he wasn't wrong. And what he said needed someone of that stature to basically say that, and what he said. And I totally have to agree with Gary Neville. And I think a lot of people in the UK agree with Gary Neville. They're saying, kick him off Sky Sports, kick him off this. Why? Why did they kick him off Sky Sports? He spoke what he had to say. He said what he had to say. The country is free to speak what you want, as long as you say it in a decent manner. And Gary Neville said it. He said it. He actually said it. He's rattled loads of feathers. He's rattled many feathers, in fact. He rattled a lot of feathers, in fact, because Guy Neville has just basically spoke out against certain fractions in the UK, which needed to be addressed. And it needed someone like Guy Neville to actually speak out and say it. And I totally got to give Guy Neville his props right here. His props right here. You know what I mean? He's a human being. He's a human being. He can say what he wants. And this is what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is block our freedom of speech. Try to block our freedom of speech, which I think is totally wrong. And I'm going to say, well done, Guy Neville. Well done for actually being brave, coming out and say what you have to say. You know what I mean? You're a businessman, He's actually putting money into the football industry after finishing the game. Yeah, he's a rich man. Simon Jordan decided that he wanted to destroy Guy Neville, but Guy Neville is too clever for Simon Jordan, because Simon Jordan's same narrative is that he's a rich man. Simon Jordan, you made a hell of an amount of money off Crystal Palace. And you're also on Talk Sport, which is one of the biggest football channels in the country, and you're making millions of pounds. So you can't say a rich Englishman hiding behind blah, blah, blah when you're one yourself. Simon Jordan. It just shows how stupid and narcissistic you are, Simon Jordan, with some of your behaviour. Because basically you're always putting down people, where Guy Neville doesn't seem to be putting down people when he's on Sky Sports. But Simon Jordan is a critic and basically don't know nothing about football, but yet he still talks a load of baloney. Where Guy Neville played for Man United for how many seasons, and he's won trophies after trophies, champions after championships. So basically, he's only voicing his opinion. Guys, please like and subscribe and share my videos. This is Wins Life. I'm just telling the truth. I totally agree with Guy Neville, what he says, and hope Guy Neville does more of this stuff, because and like Guy Lineker spoke out as well, but Guy Neville has actually spoke out the truth and actually told the truth, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And Guy Neville is a big icon in football. Have you ever seen Guy Neville podcasts? He actually tells the truth behind football, in football, and the game itself. He actually knows the game. The guy actually knows the game inside and out. So when he's talking about the British system and the flag not being used in the correct manner, like he's saying, he's not saying don't put the flag up, but don't put it up outside. Don't put it outside my place with your narrative views. And he's right. He's right. I've seen a couple of videos of people putting up flags being very aggressive, very, very, very aggressive, and the other way around. I mean, the way around. It is the UK country, so they're entitled to have a flag. No one's saying that. But the way it's been used, as you've seen with Tommy Robinson and other stuff, around the British globe, all these marches, which I think are totally barbarically stupid. They don't mean anything, because people need to wake up and smell the coffee. What is going on with Farage and Tommy Robinson and a guy called and this other guy that's Tommy Robinson's right-hand man, that's got his own Facebook channel called, his name's just spilled out of my mouth at the moment. And they're basically shouting angrily, where the veins are bursting out the necks. You know what I mean? And that's how angry some of these guys get. You know what I mean? And most of them are like thick-set, heavy guys with bald head. And this is what what's it called? The footballer was talking about. You know what I mean? Middle-aged men going around basically spouting and shouting obscenities at people, which I think is totally wrong. Everyone's got a right to freedom of speech. Everyone's got a right to freedom of speech. But what Guy Neville is saying is use it in the correct manner. Use it in the correct manner, and that's how it should be. We can't have a government trying to destroy and take away freedom of speech, because everybody has a right for freedom of speech in the UK. But you just got to use the freedom of speech in a right way, which I think a lot of people are doing. I'm watching some of these marches, and old people in the 80s are getting arrested by the police. What's that all about? That is just madness. You know what I mean? Some people haven't got because you got your freedom of speech, you're being arrested. I've seen a woman who was 87 being arrested, and a guy, a partner being arrested. And I thought to myself, wow, this is the road that we're going down. This is the road we're going down. We're going down this road of fascism, which is totally unbelievably draconian, Nazi style of behaviour. And this is what Hitler did back in the 1940s and late 1930s when he came into power. And this is the road that we seem to be going down, this fascism, Marxism ruling of the UK, which is just understandably madness. It's absolutely madness and shambolic. And I think people need to wake up and be wise. You know what I mean? Wake up and be wise. You know what I mean? Our freedom of speech is being slowly taken under us, and we're slowly being shackled by the media. For one, they're the one who are basically poisoning the system, and then the governments who run the UK are basically trying to act like America. And I think God help us when Farage gets in charge. People need to wake up and smell what he's all about. While Brexit failed, the reason why the country's in turmoil because we had a failed Brexit, and basically we can't get people now in the UK to basically do the jobs that other people from abroad would do, who are happy to send money back to their own countries, happily to feed their people as well. And unfortunately, most stuff now. Most jobs in hospitals, doctors and nurses having to give up their shifts, or while they're doing their shifts, having to clean up hospital floors, clean up toilets and all sorts of stuff because they can't get the staff in hospitals. And that's why hospitals now are really getting some of them hospitals are very, very dirty, very unclean and full of germs. And because they can't get the staff, they can't get the people from abroad to do the work. You know what I mean? The Polish people going back home, people are being deported, Jamaican people, obviously they picked on us first to be deported, you know what I mean? And then you get people from Africa who come here and work hard and want to work hard, just about doing 2-3 jobs to make ends meet in the UK. But when Brexit came into power, Nigel Farage made a hell of a amount of money, and he was laughing, and he's still laughing now because he knows that if he gets in power, he's making more money than when he was born. Because remember, Nigel Farage's parents was actually filthy rich. He never wanted for nothing. He never wanted for nothing. He was always rich, always went to a well-to-do school, from a well-to-do family, and that's what Nigel Farage is all about. So the narrative he's pushing out, people are falling for his narratives, which is all poison. He's worse than Tommy Robinson. He's actually worse than Tommy Robinson, Nigel Farage. But people are going to vote for him. But because the Labour government they've got how many years? I think they've got 3 years, so many months to turn things around. You know what I mean? Turn things around because they're not doing a good job as well. They're not doing the job that my parents came here were working hard-working people. Like I've worked hard since I left school, and Labour was for the working man, but no longer for the working man. It seems like we've got rebels that left the Conservative government who are now in charge of the Labour Party, and vice versa with Reform UK. It's rebels, you know what I mean? So also Reform UK, lots of them are tax evaders, tax dodgers, and obviously some of the members of the far right. But yeah, guys, please like and subscribe and share my video. I just think that Guy Neville was spot on with his views. I know Guy Neville does more of these videos. I like the guy, and he's a good pundit, and Guy Neville's got it spot on, and he told the truth, and some people don't like what Guy Neville had to say. So guys, I'm in a nice warm booth here. So please like and subscribe and share my videos. I do a lot of stuff, different kind of stuff, and if you like my journey, follow my journey. But I'm going to say a big thanks to Guy Neville for what he did. Was brave, and what he said was real, and I think Guy Neville was spot on with what he said. And I actually like what Guy Neville said in the other day. So big props to Guy Neville, the ex-footballer, England footballer, for having the nous to talk about talk about what he feels as a human being in the UK, and he has every right to voice his opinion. This is Wins Life. Take care. I'm out of here. Look after yourselves, guys.